this addiction did last 21 years of my life, driving drunk and not knowing how I got from point A to point B. I mean, there were times I should have been dead where guns were, drawn in my face. And then I heard the voice of God.
This is Touched by Heaven. Everyday encounters with God. Those moments when heaven and earth collide and we see God. We see His hand reaching out to us, attempting to get our attention, inviting us into a closer relationship. Here we share stories of encounter with angels, divine intervention, prophetic dreams, visions, near-death experiences, big and little God incidents. I'm your host, Trapper Jack. So glad you're here for episode 176. Linda's perfect landing, turning from crime to Christ. I'm telling you, this will give you inspiration. This will give you hope. You know those people in your life you're wondering, are they ever going to make it over to this side? Keep praying. I'm telling you, keep praying. If Linda can come, well, you heard at the beginning, there's addiction, there's alcohol, drugs, dealing drugs, guns in the face. And yet, as much as Linda was a million miles away from God, God didn't leave her. And the impossible happened. This is going to give you hope. It's going to give you hope, all right?
How are you doing, Trapper?
I'm just great. How'd you find us, Linda?
Okay, so interesting story. I ended up having COVID, and I've been through a lot in my life, but COVID was taking me down the mental health despair road. And so I ended up 17 days in the hospital. And then when I got out, I just couldn't beat this dread that was hanging over my head. And so I searched for angel stories and found your podcast, and it's changed my life. I can't stop smiling nowadays.
I can't stop smiling.
I can't stop smiling because every story that I listen to on your podcast reminds me of something that God did for me and the miracles that I've seen in my own life. And so I will get emotional, I'll tell you that, Trapper, because for so many years of my addiction, I didn't feel anything. And so my tears now are a gift from God. And so if I cry, don't get worried. It's just one of the gifts God restored for me. Realizing the truth that, that we forget to recognize every day. And so just recognizing that truth that, I'm not the only one that God speaks to, or I love how you say the Bible hasn't ended. It's still continuing to live. I love that.
In a world that doesn't claim anything is true anymore, and it's all relative, and whatever you believe is what you believe, and that's fine, to understand that there is a truth. There is a truth.
Yeah.
And that there's a God, and He loves us, and there's a book that tells us all about it, and so, amen.
Well, I was thinking, I never even realized that this was an angel until I was listening to one of your podcasts, but when I was 11 or 12, the Boy Scouts, and this is back in the day without seatbelts or helmets or anything.
Pre-1964? Because 64 seatbelts got into cars. Is it before that?
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Let's see. It had to be in the 1970s, yeah. When I was 11 or 12, the Boy Scouts had a fair at Del Mar Fairground, all blacktop. They had this telephone pole that they had stood up and put these little ladders that you could climb up to this platform on the top of the telephone pole. And then they have this pulley system with ropes. Don't even ask me why anybody would allow their children to get on this, but they did. So anyways, I've always been a big girl.
So just to wait a minute here. Boy, I tell you, things have changed in what you're allowed to do. They got a telephone pole with ladders up to it. So you climb up the ladder to get up on the top to get on some kind of pulley system to kind of like a zip line kind of thing?
Yes, exactly.
Back down to earth again, yes?
Yes.
Okay,
exactly.
And you're going up. Okay, and you're a large girl and you're going up. Okay.
I'm going up. I'm already on the platform. It looks like a triangle of rope, and then there's a log that's secured inside. Well, you thought it was secured inside of this triangle. So you sat on the log of this, and you held onto the two sides of the rope to go down to the pulley system. More like a zip line. I like that. But anyways, when I sat down, the log rolled and I slipped off the platform, but grabbed it with my hands. And all I could think of, well, first of all, I'm looking up at my friend who was my neighbor. She was younger. She's like, you could see the fear on her face. And I just kept telling her, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. But I knew for a fact there was no way that I could pull myself back up because I was such a heavy girl. Anyways, and then It really is a funny story.
You're about to fall the length of a telephone pole?
Yes, onto blacktop.
Oh my gosh. That sounds like
Yes,
death. How tall are those things?
it's pretty darn tall. That's all I can say. Okay, so when I slipped, I grabbed onto the platform. I knew immediately I was going to fall because there was no time to like even think about. But then I heard a voice, and it said, "Just let go." And I'm like, "Okay." Right? And so I let go, and I don't remember falling, but I remember landing, and it was like a very soft, like to my feet, onto my butt, and then my head. And it was like this guy ran over and he said that was the perfect 3-point landing. And I'm all, what? Because I'm on the ground now.
Feet, butt, and head. You're laughing. Okay.
If you would have been there, you would have been laughing. It's because I was just trying to get up. This guy kept pushing me back down. I was trying to get up. I was like, I think I'm good. I really think I'm good. And then the crowd started gathering, and then you hear like, move aside, move aside. And my mom's voice, she's like, I knew it was you. Anyways, I do believe an angel came and helped me make that 3-point landing and told me to let go.
You should have been messed up so badly. You should have been
I
messed
should have
up.
at least broken the ankle because, landing on your feet from that far down. I got a goose egg on the back of my head. And the doctor said, I don't even think she has a concussion. I would just monitor her. So,
all right, there's your first encounter that you know of, that you remember.
My youngest encounter.
A pillow angel.
I always wondered, too, like after that, if the guy that kept telling me that was the perfect 3-point leg, was that my angel? Because I can't remember what he looked like. I can't remember. I don't know. I just remember he kept pushing me back down, like, wait. Like,
yeah. Wow.
I'm embarrassed. Can I just get up?
As far as your upbringing and faith and all that, give me a quick background here.
And I had written to you that my father had died when I was 8 years old, and I have 6 siblings, one younger than me, and the rest are all older than me, and we're all like a year apart. But when my father died, it was a tragic car accident. It just left my mom to raise 7 children back in the 60s, 70s on her own, and so I feel like the day he died, we were just in survival mode, just trying to survive, because we not only lost my dad, but then my mom had to return to work to provide for us. Early in school, I was labeled like incompliant, troublemaker, all these different things because I didn't know how to handle the loss of my father, and it was just isolation of feeling this feeling that I didn't know what I was feeling. I didn't know that I was depressed or sad because of the death of my dad. I just knew things had changed and didn't really know, where to turn to. And then my oldest brother had told me that you don't have to go to church to believe in God, that our dad had told him, you just have to believe. And so somewhere in my back pocket, I always wanted to hang on to that because it was the only piece of my dad that I had left, was that just to believe in God, even though I didn't really know him. Well, at the age of 13, I did start using drugs. It was just a way to fit in with somebody, the crowd or whatever. And this addiction did last 21 years of my life. I mean, there were several times I should have been dead, where guns were, drawn in my face, driving drunk and not knowing how I got from point A to point B and not hurting anybody else or hurting myself. Just different times like that, just knowing that there had to have been some intervention there with, a father who loved me.
Why were there guns in your face, by the way?
Because I was into the drug scene and dealing drugs, and we got raided for one thing, and then other drug people came into the house and wanted the drugs, and it was just a horrible situation for my children, and I just didn't know how to get out of it. It was just like, and even not knowing that I was, praying to God himself, right? I was just praying for a way out, right? And I just want to get out. And especially since I had 3 children at this time. And
what got you out?
Okay. It was a day, I remember it like it was yesterday. I was so depressed and truly contemplating suicide. And even hearing my babies crying, and I couldn't get up to go through. I knew in my addiction there was one thing I knew without doubt. It's that I loved my children with all my heart and all my soul. And I just wanted the best for them. I just didn't know how to give it to them. But I was sitting in this chair in my room for like 2, 3 days, and I couldn't move from that spot. And then I heard the voice of God, and I wrote, he inscribed this poem. I love to write poems, but I've never written a poem and remembered it the next day. But this poem that God gave me, I have never forgotten a word of it, and I can recite it by heart, right? Because that's where he inscribed it.
Go ahead.
So I call the poem Answers. It says, looking for the answers to so many questions that started with why, and knowing for the past 2 weeks all I had done was cry. Sitting alone, depression was getting the better of me. I heard one of my babies crying, and I didn't even get up to go see. The thoughts that were running wickedly through my head, not even caring if I were alive or dead. Then out of the blue I heard, Satan is trying to take over as many people as he can, and the voice was neither woman nor man. And I said, what? Yet no one was there, and I believe the Lord told me some things I'd like to share. He said Satan is building his army because the end is not far away. He said the harder things get, the more we should pray. He said it's not a fight between friends, it's a fight between good and bad. And most people do not realize this, and it makes him very sad. He said, remember in the Bible when he promised to return? He said, I haven't forgotten you. I'm just giving you more time so maybe you can learn the laws and commandments I asked you to live by. Well, I pray my poem will open some eyes. It is a shame we can't all love one another. We are, in fact, all sisters, brothers, fathers, and mothers. And it was like I was sitting in this chair, and then I heard, Satan's trying to take over as many people as he can. And I sat up straight, and I was looking around like, what? But no one was there, Trapper. And I totally believe that God just spoke to me that day. I got up, I took a shower, I went and fed my kids. It was the beginning of the end of my addiction.
Wow. That poem we all heard. A lot of poetry, you hear it, and it like goes in one ear and out the other because we can't quite grasp what the heck's going on. We knew what was going on in that poem.
Yep.
How old were your kids then?
My kids at that time were 5, 6, and 7.
Yeah.
Because it took me 2 more years after that to finally pray hard enough to say, God, I just need to get out of this in order to change my life. And honestly, I think that day he sent the police, and my house was raided. I got arrested. And even though it was a horrific experience for myself and my kids, it was what I needed in order to get out of that neighborhood and that situation, in order to say, I want every resource that I can get my hands on to make the change.
Interesting how he does things, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Most people say, like, why were you so grateful you went to jail? Well, it was the change that I needed. God knew I wouldn't be able to do it on my own in this neighborhood. I had no way to move. I had nowhere to go. And so he said, well, okay, let's take her out of the situation for a minute. I only had to spend a month in jail, but it was the longest month of my life. And I knew that without a doubt, I would never, ever, ever wanted to leave my children ever again, ever.
Who had them for the month?
My sister. Yeah.
Okay. Blessed be there was someone there to do that. All right. Where do you want to go next, Miss Linda? You got us all captivated.
And then when I was pregnant with my my oldest son, I was so fearful because I know I had drugs in my system. I knew that that I wasn't a very good mom at the time, right? And then when I got to the hospital, there was a breech with 1 foot down, and really panicked in the delivery room, and I didn't know what was going on, and then I was just praying, please, please, please let my baby be okay, please, 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 and apologizing, and for my sins, and then I got this vision of the praying hands. You know how you see that picture of the praying hands?
Yeah.
But it was illuminated in blue and white, and they just came down and just this vision, and laid them on my belly, and I was able to take a deep breath, and I had to have cesarean, but which was a miracle in itself because he had the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck
Oh.
several times. So without the cesarean, he wouldn't be here. So I
In
give
that
praise to
moment, I
God.
mean, is there a dad around at that point or not?
No,
Okay. So he's gone.
no, yeah.
Um, wow.
He was actually in the military, so he wasn't. He was deployed.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't a good fit anyway. But
So when he came back, there was no connection there afterwards either.
mm-mm.
Did he ever know he was dad? Did he ever know?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Never did anything about it though.
No. Mm-mm.
So in this moment, and there is God in your life. You've got a child,
Yeah.
and you are praying. You can realize now, looking back at the, let's say, month of prison, that there was God's hand in it. I mean, you're recognizing all this stuff at this point.
hmm So when I got out of jail, I was able to like get into some programs, probationers. And I always say my probationer officer saved my life because she believed in me as a mom and as a woman. And every day I would walk into this program, she would just say, "Look at you, you showed up." And even though it was like not on, I wouldn't let it show on the outside, but on the inside, my heart was changing because somebody believed in me as a mom. Anyways, and then uh, yeah, I was able to stay clean and sober for 6 months first, and then a so-called friend came by and said, "Oh, look what I got! It's your favorite kind," and totally relapsed. But went to the program the next day because I was still wanted, my recovery, and my probation officer knew immediately that I had relapsed. So so we argued for a good hour and a half. I was like, to please just give me a second chance. And she was like, you don't deserve a second chance. Your children deserve a second chance, but you don't deserve a second chance. But she ended up giving me one. And I always think her name was Kathy Valderrama. I'll never forget her. But she gave me a second chance, and I've been clean and sober for 27 years now. So,
Oh, God bless
yeah.
you. Doesn't that sound cool? 27 years? Doesn't that sound cool?
Yes, sir. Every year. And every year I give a testimony of what God has done for me. And
Where do you give the testimony? Where?
church, NA meetings. I attend a meeting called The Most Excellent Way. It's a NA meeting through the Bible, the Beatitudes in the Bible.
Good for you. And you've been doing this since all this?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that like a weekly
Yeah.
thing?
It's a weekly meeting, but on my yearly, I'll give the testimony to make sure
Wow.
people can, especially the newcomers, that they know there's hope for recovery. I think God gave me a job in the community. This is amazing. Like I went back to school, got my teaching degree, and thought I was going to be a teacher. But I'm really good at giving resources to families and telling a piece of my story in order for them to see that there is hope. And so the job that I do now is called a community liaison. I just help families find what was once given to my family, the help that we needed, resources, the free food, the housing assistance, anything and everything that they need. I'm usually the person that they call, and then I can help them, navigate through the system of care to help them find it. I love that.
I mean, I'm just thinking here, 21 years you were going down that horrible road, and then 27 you've been clean.
I tipped the scale, Trapper.
Yes, you have. You're on the other side, but you can never let go, can you? You can't
No.
you can't relax.
No, I know for a fact that I will never ever use again. Like never. No alcohol, no drugs, no nothing, no cigarettes. Cigarettes is another miracle in itself. I don't know if you want to hear that story.
Are you kidding? Absolutely.
So I was clean and sober maybe 2 years, but I was still smoking cigarettes, and I was still chain smoking. And then I had to go in for lung X-ray because I had an episode where I had lost my breath, and thinking maybe I had asthma, but you don't grow into asthma. You usually grow out of asthma. Anyway, so it happened to be COPD, the chronic from smoking so long. But then they found a spot. They found a spot on one of my lungs. And trust me, I have tried to quit smoking many, many times, but it is one of the hardest things to stop. And you honestly feel like rage when you don't have that nicotine in your system. Anyway, so they found a spot on one of my lungs, and I was like praying to God, like, God, you brought me through all of this, and gave me this story to tell, and my kids to raise, and please don't let it be cancer, please, whatever it is, please don't let it be cancer. And I said, I will do anything. And so went to get the X-rays, and the X-rays um, came back, and they said, "Oh, you just one lung is thicker than the other." I'm like, okay, great. So now I have fat lungs too. But anyways,
I tell you that, Linda, fat lung Linda. Yeah, that's funny.
So I'm like, oh, I'm smoking a cigarette, saying, "Thank you, God, thank you." Right, smoking the cigarette, and I heard him say, "You said you would do anything." And I looked at the cigarette. I put the cigarette down. I threw my cigarettes away, and I haven't smoked since. And so, yeah. I said,
Any
okay.
desire, or did this desire go?
No rage, no desire, no looking back, nothing.
He did it all.
He did it all.
Wow.
I was just so grateful. It wasn't cancer, and that he still looked after me.
Look at you. You're a walking miracle, girl. You are a walking miracle. Let's pause right about here in Linda's perfect three-point landing, as it turns out. Amazing. This is just such a great inspirational episode. More coming up here. Quick shout out here to Brenda Mora. Thanks, Brenda. Our Patreon shout out. Here's what you do. Here's what she did. You can go to patreon.com and search for Trapper Jack, or come right here to episode 176. Click your way through. And thank you so much for helping us out and joining the Patreon family and keeping this all going so that the episodes keep rolling on. We appreciate it so much. Thank you. All right. Now more with Linda.
So I wanted to tell you, Trapper, about my greatest gift, I think.
Mm-hmm.
It's a little emotional, but in my addiction, I did have 3 abortions. As a mom, you think this is something that you could never be forgiven for. But I just want to say, women that do have abortions are desperate, and that they don't intentionally set out to hurt their children. They're just desperate and don't know what to do. So I don't know if you ever heard of Cursillo. Cursillo is like a Catholic retreat. But there was a retreat called Walk to Emmaus that came from the Cursillo guidelines, and it's very structured, but it's just all about the road to Emmaus, when Jesus was walking and the disciples didn't recognize him.
Right after the resurrection. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So the Walk to Emmaus retreat is so that you can learn to recognize God in every aspect of your life, right? And so it's a beautiful retreat, and I know it comes from the Catholic retreat, Cursillo, but it's so beautiful. And it's all about the agape love throughout these 3 days of this retreat. And once you go on the retreat, then you come back and work it for other ladies that are going on the retreat. And there's a men's retreat and a women's retreat. But
overall, this retreat it's just to go deeper into your faith. Is that the main goal of this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And to be able to, and mostly because on the road to Emmaus, when the disciples didn't recognize him, not until they broke bread, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then to recognize God in every aspect of your life, because he is standing right beside you, and he is every moment and every day he's with you if you choose to recognize him. Yes. Standing right beside you, right?
Right.
And that's the hardest part. Sometimes we get so caught up in the world that we forget to recognize, oh yeah, hey God, what do you feel about this? Or, please bless this as I go about this day, or,
Wow, you just said something. You just said something that's one of my favorite things, which is, hey, God, how do you feel about this? Hey, Jesus, how do you feel about this? We don't even ask him.
Yeah.
We usually don't even ask him.
Yeah. Yep. The world takes us down this, spinning tunnel of, I got to get it done. But Jesus is like, wait for me. Wait for me. I'm right here. Anyway, so during this retreat, there's a different events that like a candlelight event, and this one was called Dying Moments, and it's kind of like you don't tell what happens on the retreat, so I'm not going to give out too much information. because that way you can, experience it on your own. Um, but um, but you give to God what's keeping you from Him, right? What's the thing that is on your heart the most that keeps you from being closer with Him? So this year that I was on this retreat, I had asked God to please, take my guilt of my abortions from me, and it was like a ton of weight that I carried around with me, since I was the 17, I think was my first abortion. And so when I did this event and gave it to God, it was like a ton of bricks had been lifted from my shoulders, and I felt free and I felt forgiven, and it was just a beautiful. And the whole year, I don't think I ever even, I gave thanks for it, but I didn't feel guilty about the abortions anymore, right? So the next year I come back, I'm working the retreat with these ladies that, they call them pilgrims, the new pilgrims. And so we go to the same event. And this year I remember that I had died to excuses because I can make up 1,000,001 excuses of why I don't open my Bible, or why I'm not praying, or why I, forget to involve God in every aspect of my life. So I wanted to get rid of the excuses and really get, deeper in God's word. And so the whole event went through, and then you go straight to lunch. And at the table where we're eating lunch, the lady that was sitting next to me, she was new, so I didn't really know her, but she would timidly leaned over to me and said, "I'm so sorry to ask you this, but during the event, did you die to abortions?" And I look at her like, I don't know how my face looked, but I just looked at her and I said, "No," quickly, right? But then at the same table with these, 6 women around, I'm in battle with God. So I'm like telling him, like, "I thought you forgave me for this." And he's like, "Ask her why." And I said, "But I don't want to ask her why. I thought that, you had taken this from me. Why are you bringing it up again?" And he said, "Ask her why." And I'm like, "But seriously, God, I'm not as strong as you think I am." And he said, "You're as strong as I make you." And I was like, and he said, "Ask her why." And like a child that's throwing a tantrum, I kind of crossed my arms and I turned back to her and I said, "Well, why do you ask?" And then she said, "I should have died to that." And then we hugged and we talked and told her that this happened last year for me and that God had forgiven me. It was like a most peaceful year I had ever had, uh, living with this in my life. And I asked you just to ask God for forgiveness because He knows your heart and He will forgive you. And so that night, my bunk just happened to be under this huge crucifix cross that was at the end of my bunk, and I was laying looking up at Jesus, and I'm just crying in my bed, like, I know you wanted me to help her, but it still hurts to even think of it and to even bring it up. And he said, "Well, you did well." And then he said, "Look, I have something for you." I swear, Trapper, that I saw tears coming from the crucifix as well. But I don't know if they were my own tears or truly there. But he said, "I have something for you." And I said, "What could you possibly have that could take this pain away?" And then he gave me a vision, this beautiful vision of Jesus in this white robe, and there was a child on his back saying, "Come on, Jesus, let's go." And then there was a child pulling his sleeve saying, "Come on, Jesus, I need to show you something." And then there was another child at his feet, just like admiring him. And I was thinking, oh my God, that's exactly like my kids would do to him if they met him. And he said, "These are your children in heaven that are waiting for you." And he said, "And I named them for you." He said, "This is Jeremiah, this is Timothy, and this is Sarah. And so I know without doubt that I will meet my children one day and be able to hold them and apologize for my actions."
Linda, you're killing us. You're killing us, Linda.
Sorry.
This is beautiful. This is so because you're touching people because there's so many There's so many of us out here who have had some responsibility, and we say we're sorry, and men and women, by the way, women aren't doing this by themselves. And you're showing us how. You're showing us how to say I'm sorry in case that hasn't happened yet. In case the I'm sorry hasn't happened yet.
Yes,
I believe you saw the real tears of Jesus because he knows the pain that women go through in particular.
And he forgives.
Yep. He's an ocean of mercy, an ocean.
Yes, so much. I think sometimes we feel so comfortable in our funk that we want to stay there, right? But we truly have to believe that if we give it to him, let him take it and don't take it back. Because sometimes you ask for forgiveness, he forgives you, and then you take it back, and he's like, "What are you talking about?"
Then we keep going.
I don't see it.
We keep going back to it. We want to relive it again and again, and you didn't really forgive me, so we go through this. We don't trust God's forgiveness. We don't trust Christ's forgiveness, and so we bring it back up again. Couple of things, and I may have mentioned this before on the podcast. I don't remember where I say things anymore, but I think about Mother Angelica from the Catholic channel EWTN, and she talked about standing at the ocean's edge. And a wave came up, and there was a splash onto her hand. And she heard the voice of Jesus saying, "Do you see that? Do you see that little drop? Yeah. Okay, that's your sin. That's your sin. Now flick it back into the ocean." And she flicks it back into the ocean, and he says, "Can you see it?" And she goes, "No." And he says, "See that ocean? That's my mercy. You can't even see your sin. There is I am mercy, and it's an ocean of mercy, and our little drop, you can't even see it. Once he forgives, you can't even see it. It's gone.
Yeah.
It's gone." And that woman who was next to you, she was basically saying to you that in her mind, she should have given that abortion or abortions up, and she wouldn't do it. She just couldn't do it in the previous exercise. Is that what she was saying?
That's what she was saying, that it was on her heart so bad, but she didn't have the strength to present it to him yet. And we've been friends forever now, so
really,
we'll never forget. We'll never forget that day and what happened.
Oh, how cool is that? You didn't know each other before, and now lifelong friends. How long ago was that?
That had to be at least 20 years ago.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
Linda, this is gorgeous. This is gorgeous.
Tell you about my last one. Recently, when I was in the hospital with COVID. That was, horrible because you couldn't have visitors. You knew your family was on the other end outside, worrying and, praying with all their heart. People came out of the woodwork on Facebook, and people I had worked with years and years and years ago to say they were praying for me, and how wonderful and beautiful that was. Knowing that, throughout my lifetime, I've met many, many, many prayer warriors that continue to pray for me. Right. And, but it's just the isolation of being in a room by yourself and not knowing if you're going to live or die. And, I kept telling the nurses, tell me your story so that, I could pray for you so that I could take my mind off of what was going on. But there was this cold spot in my back. It was you know how you chew a piece of mint gum and then you drink something cold and there's that rush. I don't know how to explain it, but you take a deep breath and it hurts your chest a little bit.
Yeah.
I felt it in my back. And so there was this one spot that was just cold, and it was scary. And for the whole 17 or however many days I was in there at that time, I thought that this is where the infection was, or anyways. And then I was laying down to go to sleep or try to get some sleep. And then I had asked God, just let me know, God, if this is where my spirit will leave my body, because it felt that bad. And then he said, oh, you're such a silly girl. This is where the healing's taking place. And I said, oh, okay. And I slept so well that night. Just knowing that he was healing my body and knowing that I was going to survive this. And it was so short and sweet, but it was so powerful to know that cold spot in my back was not where my spirit was going to leave my body.
Probably just fat lungs. That's all. Just fat lungs.
Yes.
Yes,
sir.
That's all it was.
Don't be jealous that God made so much more of me.
That's great. I love it. I love it. You're a delight. You're an absolute delight, Linda. You made my day. You have just so made my day.
You made my day, Trapper. You changed my life with the stories that you share, and knowing that, your belief in these stories and it's spreading throughout, hopefully the world, because I know that I'm sharing. You got to listen to this podcast. It changed my life. Hoping that, that the Spirit of the Lord, ignites again, because we need it so bad in this world. And when one spark lights another spark, there's no stopping him. So you are in my prayers, dear sir.
Thank you. And just added you to mine. Actually, you were already there, because I pray for the listeners all the time. How do you pray? Do you have a routine? What do you do?
I should have told you that. It wasn't until I was 40 years old that I realized my mom was Catholic. I know that she was praying that rosary for me over and over and over again. And I'm so grateful to God that I get to show her the woman I was meant to be, not the woman that, that I was, but the woman I was meant to be. And we talk to each other every day, even though she's in Missouri. Every time I talk to her, she's like, "I'm so proud of you." And I'm like, "Oh man, it's because of your prayers." Just remembers but I do pray. I have these little prayer beads. It's not a rosary, but it's a prayer bead that I use to pray. My son is really being called. My youngest son is really being called to follow God, and we don't know what he's going to do with that, but he's really embedded in the Bible right now, and just anything and everything to get him closer to God. So I make him listen to the podcast too.
How old is he?
He's 35. Yeah, that's my youngest, and yeah, all my kids, Trapper, beat the chain of addiction and are doing really well. So
wow, and they remember. Yeah. They remember, don't they?
And it's so much so that they told me, "Mom, you just need to get over it, right? You need to stop feeling guilty, because look at us, we're good. Look at all the work you put into it. Look at all the work we put in. We're good. We're
that's
good."
Great. That is great. Uh-huh. What's our takeaway, Ms. Linda? What do we walk away with here?
I would say our takeaway is, don't be afraid to ask, because God will forgive. I would say, don't forget to include him in every aspect of your life. Ask him what he thinks about it. Ask him to guide you. Ask him to lead you. And I would say our takeaway is, there's nothing too big or too small that God doesn't care about. And that, that's it, Trapper.
Thanks, Linda.
I really appreciate you, sir.
I appreciate you. You're changing lives. You're touching lives with this one. This is so honest and to the gut.
Yeah. Thanks, Trapper, because I'm a little bit nervous. If people are going to judge you.
Yeah, no worries, because I was kind of nervous talking to you too, because, it's Linda.
I'm definitely going to look into the Patreon. I just haven't, done it yet, but I've only started listening to it maybe 2-3 weeks ago.
Oh, is that all? Wow, you just found us.
Well, you listen to it while I'm driving anywhere to go. So I listen to your podcast then, but when I lay down, I always put it on, and within 5 minutes, I'm asleep.
I put more people to sleep, I'm telling you.
I love it, though.
Thanks, Linda. You are such an inspiration. I'm telling you, I've loved this episode. And repeat after me, peoples. Repeat after me. I will not write off anyone, okay? Not with the power of prayer, not with God doing the impossible. There is hope. In fact, my wife and I, over breakfast this morning, we were talking about somebody outside the family, and I said, don't write her off. I'm telling you, Linda's an inspiration to all of us. Let's just keep praying, and we'll get her over here. We'll get her over here. So don't give up on anyone, okay? This episode just proves that in our lifetime, all of our lifetimes, we may leave Jesus, but he never leaves us. He's always right there, arms wide open, as he is on the cross, waiting for us to come back for the embrace. He is an ocean of mercy. He is mercy. Just beautiful. Thank you so much again, Linda. What is your story? What is your story? Let me know here at touchedbyheaven.net. And thanks for your Patreon support again at patreon.com, searching for Trapper Jack, or just come here to episode 176 of touchedbyheaven.net. All right, let's do this again next week. More inspiration, okay? At Touched by Heaven, everyday encounters with God. I'm Trapper Jack.